Hi everybody, it's Alyce-Kay Ruckelshaus from Threshold of Hineni, and I just wanted to continue with the thought that I was talking about in my last video, which was probably posted yesterday. I'm not exactly sure what my schedule is. So anyway, I'm sorry, my last grief vlog video. Anyway, so what I was about to talk about was that one thing that I've noticed throughout my life is that God gives us different points in our life when we have the opportunity to change who we are. Okay, now don't misunderstand that. I'm not saying that we become somebody fake. It's like we're a diamond and we have lots of different facets, and we just choose which of those facets we're going to allow to shine. Sometimes we make the mistake of wanting a facet that somebody else has that we don't, and we try to be like that. And I'll give you an example of that from my own life in a couple minutes. And that doesn't work very well. But if we pray about it, if we understand who we are, then we have those choices to make. Okay, so, well, before I give an example from my past, there's another thing that I wanted to say is this is one of the reasons why, you know how in a couple of videos I've talked about how we have to pay attention. We have to pay attention to what God's doing in our life. And this is one of the things that we have to be on the lookout for. It doesn't happen very often. I think some people probably get one time. This is my third right now. What I'm going through right now is my third time that I have an opportunity to change that I know of. Actually, fourth. Okay, so the first time that I know of was when I was going into fifth grade. My family moved from Santa Clara to Campbell. And so it meant changing schools. And so, yeah, I need something for there too. So it meant changing schools. And so I was going to be around a completely different group of people. I was 10 years old and I turned 11 in January, halfway through the school year. So I think it was kind of unusual probably that I figured this out, but I think God just put it on my heart. That here I was going to be moving to a new place, and I could decide some things about who I was, what I was going to take with me. People think of baggage as being a bad thing, but I think that when you're traveling, you need baggage. And we're traveling through this life, and so we have to have baggage. It's just that sometimes we choose to take the wrong baggage. When I pack for a trip, I tend to pack way too much baggage. I tend to take everything that I might possibly need, and it wears me down, especially when I traveled in Europe. I had the biggest suitcase that you could possibly have. It had little tiny wheels on it, and they didn't work very well on the cobblestones in Europe, and they were really hard to carry. It was really hard to carry upstairs, and a lot of the pensions that we stayed in had 3-4 stories of stairs, narrow stairs, to take this huge suitcase up. So baggage can be bad and it can weigh us down, but it can also carry the things that we need, the tools that we need from one part of our lives to another part of our life. So, I don't think that you want to get rid of all of that. I think you have to, as you're moving into a new part of life, you have to, and I'm kind of making this up as I go, you guys, so the analogy may not fit the whole way, but let's go with it. As you go from one part of your life to another, you don't have to actually, but you can. You have the opportunity to do things on purpose. You can just travel from one section to another, one part of your life to another, and just let everything take you along, and you just haphazardly take stuff with you. Or you can purposefully and intentionally think through what you're going to take with you into the next part of your life. That's where I am right now. And if you're watching this grieving video and you're going through loss, it may be where you are either now or will be at some point. I think that when we lose somebody who was a big part of our life, that's probably one of those opportunities that we have to enter a new phase in our life and to tweak who we are or change who we are to a very big extent. And again, I'm not talking about becoming somebody that you aren't. I'm talking about choosing which facets of your diamond you're going to allow to shine. So, for example, there's a sorrowing part of me. There's a part of me that is sad and distressed and depressed because I've lost Bill. I mean, he was my soulmate, and I do believe you can have more than one soulmate, but because I think that Beth was his soulmate, but I was also definitely his soulmate. He loved us in different ways, but he loved both of us very, very much, and we both fulfilled a different aspect of him. And I don't know if I'll get married again. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, I'm more open to the possibility now than I was a few weeks ago. But that's neither here nor there, really. Okay, so what I'm talking about, though, is he was my soulmate. So losing him is a huge, huge thing. We were together all the time. All the freaking time. And we loved being together. And we loved being married to each other. We didn't just love each other. We loved being married to each other. Marriage was fun. We loved it. And I'm not just talking about sex. I'm talking about being married, But being committed to each other was a huge part of that. We loved being committed to each other. We loved having that tie to each other. We loved taking care of each other. There was just so much that we just loved about being together and being married to each other. And anyway, so I've lost that aspect of my life. It's not here anymore. I'm never going to get it back. Even if I were to get remarried, it wouldn't be Bill, and so I will lose that aspect of my life. That doesn't mean that if I married somebody else, it wouldn't be as good. It could be, but it will be in a very different way, just like his being married to Beth was different from being married to me. And if I choose not to get married, it's going to be good in a different way. I'm a whole person. I need to be a whole person, not just half of a couple. So going back to these opportunities that we have to figure out who we're going to be for this next phase of our life, which as far as I know will be the rest of my life, but it might not be. I'm going to treat it as if it is. So one example of this was when I was in 5th grade. I started to tell you about this. My family moved from Santa Clara to Campbell. Not very far. I think it's like 15 miles or so. We still went to the same church, but I was in a different school district and I was going to be going to a different school. And so I realized that I had the opportunity to change things about myself that I wasn't happy with. And so I decided to change 3 things. Now, I didn't have the maturity to think through this the way that I can think through it now. So I did some things well, and I made a really bad mistake in one of those 3 things. So the 3 things that I decided to change, my teachers had always complained about my penmanship. And I decided that I was going to have the best penmanship in my class. Okay, 5th grade, this is a big deal, okay? We don't have other earth-shattering things. Okay, so that was one of the things that I decided. And actually, that has served me well. I have been paid a lot of money to do calligraphy for people. Learning that control over my penmanship has paid off. It wasn't a life-shattering thing, but it did pay off. Another thing that I decided was that English was going to be my favorite subject. And I decided that because my mom had always said that English was her favorite subject. But I did already have an affinity for writing. And I had, in 3rd grade, I had my first poem published in our school newspaper. I mean, it wasn't anything, literary or anything like that, but it was better than most 3rd graders wrote. And, so I already had that tendency, but it wasn't something I had really done anything with or wanted to do anything with. And I decided at that time, and true to my nature, this decision to change these things about myself was like the day before I started school. So it was like not something that I spent a lot of time thinking about or working on or figuring out how I was going to do. It was just like, okay, I'm going to have the best penmanship in the class, and I'm going to English is going to be my favorite subject. I think math had been my favorite subject before that. I don't know. The other thing that I decided was an actual change to my personality, and this is not good. There was a girl in my fourth grade class that I really admired, and I used to know her name, and now I can't remember it. She was very quiet. She was very soft-spoken. You had to really stop to listen to her because she spoke very quietly, and she blushed whenever anybody talked to her, and I just thought, oh, I want to be feminine like that, because I had been pretty loud, and I was bold. That's the way God made me. But to me, it wasn't feminine. And the Christian culture that I grew up in had very specific ideas of femininity. And I didn't really fit that. And the fact that I didn't fit that got me into trouble with my church throughout the years. It wasn't anything that I tried to do, but people looked at me as a troublemaker. I never tried to cause trouble. It's just who I was. And so I didn't understand, and I tried to conform to their ideas of femininity, but I just wasn't able to. Anyway, I think this was my effort to do that at 10 years old. And so I made the mistake of choosing to be quiet and shy and to blush. I mean, yes, you can actually make yourself blush if that's what you decide that you're going to do. And so I started blushing anytime anybody spoke to me. I was really quiet and shy. And even though I still gravitated to the leadership positions and my teachers still recognized those leadership abilities in me, I intentionally shied away from them a lot of times because that didn't fit the image of femininity that I was being taught in my church. And my church was very important to me, and for good reason. So in my culture, and I want to say this was not what I was taught in my family. My parents never said, this is what a woman should be like. They never told me not to be a leader. They encouraged me to be a leader. But I listened to my church more than I listened to my parents. Okay? So I mean, there's a lot that I lost in my life because of that, and that I still struggle with because of making that decision back then. In a way, I think that it's like putting a curse on myself. And there was a time when I prayed for forgiveness for that, and a lot of that was taken away. But I think that there are also consequences that I'm still living with because I tried to change that part of my personality. I tried to change who God had made me to be, not just one of those facets. It wasn't a matter of deciding which facet to allow to shine. It was a matter of trying to change myself from a diamond into a sapphire, you know? And so that didn't work very well. But that was the first time that I can remember intentionally being aware of the opportunity to change who I was or how I presented myself to the world. So these are to write on. I'm going through this to see if I'm ready to bind it or not. I just figured I'd do something while I'm talking so that you're not just bored looking at my hands. So I did that. And I was able to do all those things. I mean, obviously, I'm a writer now, so changing to English was actually a really good decision. You know, I don't know, maybe I would have been a famous mathematician if I had stayed with math. But those were two facets, two different things that I did well. And it was just a choice of shifting to emphasize a different one. When I went to college, I had that same opportunity, but I didn't really take advantage of it. At least I didn't intentionally. There were things about my life, my person, that did change somewhat, but I wasn't intentional about it in a way that I could have been. And because of that, I mean, I did get a lot from being at Westmont. I got a lot. That was just an amazing place for me. And you know, I was very aware of that. I was aware that I had the opportunity to learn from some really fantastic people, and I did really try to take advantage of that. But there were some things that I could have gotten from my experience there that I didn't, because I didn't intentionally take hold of that. And it wasn't a decision not to, it was just that I didn't know to do that. And so that's one thing that I wish I could get across to younger people so that they know, and I want to get across to you, is to be aware of these opportunities. So the next opportunity that I had, and I didn't really make good use of it, was when I got divorced 15 years ago. I had the opportunity to make a lot of changes in my life. And some of those changes were kind of forced on me because, I was then a single mom. So there were changes that just, it's just part and parcel of the whole monster. And, but there were some positive changes that I could have made that I didn't because I didn't think of it. I wasn't aware. I wasn't watching for that. I was too emotionally tied up in everything that was happening. And, to a certain extent, when you're going through a big life change like that, just like, losing Bill, I haven't been thinking from the beginning about this. I have kind of. I mean, I think early on I mentioned in one of my videos that I needed to figure out who I am. So I was kind of aware of that, but not to the extent that I am now. It's hard. And I think that when you're going through something really difficult, your focus tends to be on what you're going through and not on the opportunities. I meant to look this up and I forgot to. But there's something about like some Chinese word or something, some Chinese character for crisis means like opportunity and something else, or crisis and opportunity or something, or the character for opportunity means crisis and something. I don't know. But anyway, what I'm saying is that crisis and opportunity go hand in hand, and we have to be aware of that. One thing I will say is that it's a lot easier to be aware of that if you have people in your life who will help you to be aware of that when the time comes. Just because I'm aware of that now doesn't mean that I had the ability to be aware of that a month ago. Okay? I've been aware of this for a long time in my life. I've been aware of this principle. But when you're going through something, it's really hard to think of those things. And so we need people in our life who understand these things and who have permission from us to remind us of these things, and who are willing themselves to be bold with us and to remind us of these things. It doesn't mean that they're going to force us to do them, but we often need to be reminded, because when we're going through something, it's very hard for us to think of the things that God's taught us that would apply to this situation. And that's where we need the body of Christ. We need each other. We need each other to be lifting us up and to be giving us strength. We also need each other to remind us of the things that God's taught us. So one of the things that I've realized as I've done this self-examination that I was talking about in my last video, and I've only begun that. I still have a lot to do on it. I've just kind of thought about it, but I need to do some really serious journaling about it. One of the things that I'm thinking about is, who do I want to be? And I guess it's not just who do I want to be, it's who does God want me to be in this next phase of my life. And I don't mean that in a I'm so righteous way. I mean that in I have learned that it's just a whole lot better to do what God wants you to do. And I don't mean that he's controlling or anything, but he knows. He's wise. He created me to be bold. And so when I decided that I was going to be shy, that did not work out well. And it's kind of a problem for me now. I'm not shy, but I still am not as bold as I could be. And I'm learning, I'm improving, but I don't have that boldness that I had before. And so finding out, okay, Lord, who do you want me to be in this next phase of my life? It involves a lot. It involves praying. It involves listening in prayer, not just asking God, but listening for his answers. You've got to be quiet so you can hear him. It involves being aware of what's going on in my life now, of what God taught me over the past 5 years, and also the previous 10 years when I was a single mom, and maybe even back farther. But mainly the changes are going to be from the last 5 years, I think. And so for me, that means that I'm going to sit down and I'm going to journal about this. I'm going to really stop and examine and pay attention to the things that I learned in my marriage to Bill, the things that I learned from him, the things that I learned from being married to someone like him. the things that I learned about marriage, the things that I learned about life, the things that I learned about myself, the things that I learned about how the world works, just all those different things. And so I'm going to spend time examining that and praying over it. It's not something that I'm going to decide today. It's something that's going to take some time, because I want to be intentional about it. I don't want to be slow and be afraid to make decisions, but I do want to be intentional because this is a big thing. So yeah, so that's where I'm going in my life. And I just want to encourage you to try to be aware of those times, and try to be aware of those times in the people that you love as well, so that you can, if you have permission and you have this kind of relationship, you can suggest to them that this might be a time that they have the opportunity to do something like this, because this is a really big thing. It positions you for the next part of your life. It will position me for whatever kind of ministry God wants me to have from this point on. It will position me for what kind of lifestyle I'm going to be living. Am I going to be living as a single, or am I going to be married, living with having a partner, a marital partner? And I could see either way, really, which is, that's progress, because even a few days ago I couldn't see getting married, and right now getting married seems, I'm having a hard time imagining it, but I could see that it's possible that that could be where I will be going. I don't know. I guess I'm just kind of like open to almost anything right now. I want God to show me. Before I met Bill, I was open to either possibility too. I had a relationship for 1.5 years with a man who was really wonderful, but it didn't work out for us. We weren't right for each other. And when we broke up, after a month or so, I asked God, I said, Lord, I really want to have a marriage partner. I'm just the kind of person who, I love marriage. At that point, I hadn't had a good marriage, but I knew that you could have a really good marriage. I had read marriage books since I was in junior high. I wanted to be a wife. And it wasn't just that I wanted to be married. I wanted to be a really good wife. I wanted to have a great marriage. And so I didn't really want to give up on that. I wanted to be married. But at the same time, it was kind of discouraging. I had been dating for 4 years and I hadn't found anybody, and not really even close. And so I asked God, I said, Lord, if you don't want me to get married, if you want me to be single and just dedicate my life to just serving you alone, then, sorry, I bumped the camera, then I'll do that. But I would really appreciate it if you would let me know, so that I don't waste any more time looking, so that I can commit myself this way. And I didn't expect a clear answer right away. I'm not sure I even expected a clear answer at all, even though that's what I was asking for. But the answer came right away, and God told me, your husband is out there looking for you. Put yourself where he can find you. And so I got onto a dating site for seniors and met Bill. And we knew very, very quickly that we belonged together. And so I'm looking for that same kind of guidance from him, as not just as to whether or not I should get married, but to what direction he wants my ministry to take. What does he want me to emphasize in my ministry? Because there's a lot of different things that I'm very interested in doing, but I also realize that the older I get, the less of those things I can do, and I need to focus. I need to have razor sharp focus. What else does he want my life to look like for this next phase? And I have to say that at first all that was depressing, because I didn't want things to change from the way that they were with Bill. I loved our relationship. I loved our marriage. I loved our life, even though for the past couple of years it had been hard. It made us love each other more, and we kept affirming to each other that we still really loved our life and we loved our marriage, even though it was hard, because we knew we were working towards something. So I think that at first the thought of changing who I am and trying to find out who I am now was depressing, because it meant I couldn't be this person that I loved being, which was Bill's wife. But now that I am seeing things differently, and I'm seeing honoring my husband by moving forward. I'm seeing that I'm moving towards him, not away from him as I move forward. And it's helping me to be a lot more joyful and excited about what God has in store for the next part of my life. I can choose to spend the rest of my life moping around and being depressed because I don't have Bill, or I can say, okay, I don't have Bill. That's not what I want, but that's how it is. So now what am I going to do? How is my life going to look? And I can take charge of that. And so that's what I'm trying to do. That's, I think, the next step. And I will try to share with you all. And I think that I'm almost ready to actually get back on camera so that you can see me talking. Although it is really a lot easier this way for me. You can let me know if I need to get on camera or not, because it is a lot easier for me just being able to talk like this. I feel like I can think more clearly and stuff, and I don't have to worry about makeup and stuff. Sometimes I'm in my bathrobe. But anyway, if it would be helpful for you to be able to see me while I'm talking, let me know that. And I'll start doing that, because I think that this is going to be maybe a new series. I'm not sure if it'll be a new series or if it'll continue being my grief vlog, but I think it'll be a new series, because I think I'm still grieving, but that's not the focus of my life now. So anyway, I hope all this makes sense. And yes, I will still allow myself to grieve if I need to. If I need to cry, I'm sure I will still cry. I'm not trying to suppress my emotions, but I'm trying to decide what to put my emphasis on. And I don't think that I need to be depressed anymore, or at least not all the time anymore. Maybe a day here or there. I don't know. I'm giving myself permission to do whatever I need to do. But yeah. So anyway, that's what I've got for you right now. All right. I love you all. I will talk to you later. Bye-bye.